So that's a good thing to know. You can keep a window above your editor, like a gameplay window, and change any value in the editor, or I can go back to my level here and select the tile map, add tiles. Where's the player? It's around that area. You can see that when I'm adding tiles in the editor, they instantly appear in the game as well. This is a really nice feature of Godot that you can use to make good level design as you are working. So now I'm going to create some more enemies here. I'm going to select the enemy. I'm going to move it in between these holes. You can see that the enemy position updates instantly. Select the enemy in the scene tree. Press Ctrl D to duplicate it and move the second enemy a bit farther out. And now we have two enemies walking in our level. We can jump on the enemy's head to stomp it, or we can die miserably. That's the thing I was talking about. We want to make sure that the stomp area on the enemy is big enough so that we don't get that case where the player dies before killing the enemy. So I'm going to make it a little bigger here and maybe go back to the player scene and make it so the enemy detector aligns with the x-axis, with the base of the player's collision box, and that should be enough to avoid that bug. Yeah, seems to be working fine. And with that, you have a nice little level. You can also make the camera stop at the end of the level. The thing with that is that you have to configure the camera to do so for every level based on how big the level is. Let's see how to do that for our level template. So we're going to go on the level template scene. I'm going to zoom back. And we want the camera to stop on the right edge of our tile map here, on the last tile. You can see we have rulers in the view that you can click and drag rulers from. We're going to hover the left ruler and click and drag to place a ruler on the right side of your game level. You can still use the mouse wheel to be more precise and align the ruler with the end of your tile. The advantage is that you can see as you are dragging the ruler how many pixels it is compared to the origin on the x-axis. You can also hover an existing ruler on a given axis. So for example, to move an existing ruler, you want to go to the ruler, to the top of the view here, and click and drag from there. You can't drag it from the view. You have to go in the ruler area and click and drag. And we can see that the level ends at 3600 pixels. Now, we don't want to change the camera's limit in the player's scene because this will apply to every level where we place the player. Instead, we would like to just change that value, the end of the level, in our level template here. We can do that by right-clicking on the player, selecting Editable Children, and you want to go down to the Camera 2D, expand the limit category, and for right, you will enter 3600 pixels. Once you've done that, I'm going to move the player forward a bit so that we can see it. As you move the player to the right side of the level, you will see the camera stops at the rightmost of the level. This limit feature is really nice because you can see how when you move the player around the game world, the camera really clamps, it stops at the limits we defined. With that, we have one thing left to do, adding our background. The background is a texture that you can find in the assets folder. It's called background.png. We're going to click and drag it into the game, and we want to make it a texture rectangle. Now make sure that when you do that, you are on the level template node, so background is added as a child of it. Now the texture rectangle is a texture that can map to the screen. it is a node designed to create user interface, but it's sometimes useful to make textures that repeat or textures that take the entire screen area. You will see its icon is green. When you select it, a new option appears in the toolbar called Layout. This is an option, a tool you can use to quickly anchor and resize your texture based on the game window. So click the Layout menu and select the full rectangle option. When you do that, the background will take the entire game viewport. Click and drag the background to the top of the list so that it appears in the background. And now, when you play the game, it's going to get stuck on the left side. So it's not going to pan the entire game scene. We can change that by creating a canvas layer. It's like layers in a program like Krita or GIMP. So with level template selected, press Ctrl A to add a node and look for canvas layer. Add a canvas layer node. I'm going to place it at the top, right below level template, and add background as a child of it. Now our canvas layer, if you select the node, has a layer index property. This defines in which order these layers or the sprites draw in the game. Layer 1 is going to be above the default sprites that we placed in our scene tree. So we want to use a negative number here. You can put anything -100 to say it's really far in the background if you want. This will make the layer draw behind everything. And then you can press F5 to see that now this canvas layer stays behind the character at all times. So it's like a fixed sky texture if you want. Last thing, I'm going to go to debug, hide the collision shapes by checking visible collision shapes here, toggling the option off so that we can see the game in its final form.